Calling this meeting to order on Monday, August 12th, 6 p.m. Crosby, do roll call, please.
Crosby, here. Mike?
Here.
Jake?
Here.
Gail?
Here.
Dale?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Vito?
Here.
Craig?
Here.
Carolyn is excused.
All right, this is an open meeting and it has been posted. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is presentations. I believe we have Andy.
Good evening. We have Andy Trudell here from MHS to do two things for us tonight. Review the end of last school year's athletics and activities, and then do a forecast for us of what's coming up this fall.
Well, thank you for having me. Nice to see such a large crowd to come hear about our spring sports results from last spring, so that's awesome. We had a lot of really good success from a team standpoint last spring. I'm not going to read through all these. I think you guys have this in your board minutes. But we won a number of regional championships, conference championship in boys track. This year was our first year where we sponsored boys and girls lacrosse, and I thought those initial seasons went really, really well. Our numbers, participation numbers were very high, and I'm told that next year potentially our numbers are going to be such that we'll be adding teams to both the boys and the girls. So the boys this year had a JV team, a varsity team. Next year, potentially a JV2 team as well. And then the girls only had a varsity team this year, but it looks like our sign-up numbers are such that we'll be able to have field two girls lacrosse teams next year, which is fantastic as well. Tom, you can roll. Some individual highlights. I started with all conference awards. Again, all kinds of worthy student athletes winning awards and being honored by the Classic 8 Conference. And then I'd like to point out we had an assistant coach of the year this year. Not every sport does coaches of the year, but softball and a few others do. And in softball, Aaron Bartlett was selected as the Classic 8 assistant coach of the year. And interestingly enough, Dan Perney, our longtime head girls softball coach, resigned at the end of this season, or retired, I should say, at the end of this season, 21 years as our head softball coach. So I want to give kudos out to him. Dan did a great job. And Aaron Bartlett is actually going to succeed him as our next head softball coach. Some individual state highlights. We, again, all kinds of great things happening. A singles player and doubles team in tennis both made the round of 32 at state tennis. We had a number of place winners at the state track meet. We had the girls as a team finish sixth overall at state track and lacrosse. And we had one team, our 4x100 team, were state champions. And I actually have a video on the next slide that I'd like to share with you of that race. If Tom can hit play, that'd be awesome.
Set.
White top, blue shorts, if you ever figured that out. Don't by a parent who does a pretty good job of staying calm and keeping everything in frame here.
Good, Hannah. Good, Hannah. There we go.
That head is of our finisher here, who's about to get the baton. Just like the Olympics, right? You'll notice on the scoreboard who we finished right ahead of. Heartland High.
Madison Edgewood.
Thank you, Tom. And then we also had, we're always proud of these. At the end of every season, the coaches in the conference vote on the top sportsmanship teams in each sport. And we had 2 sportsmanship awards in the spring, softball and boys track. Gave us a total of 6 for the year, which was the second most of any school of the 9 schools in the Classic 8. So always proud when our kids not only compete at the highest level, but also do it in a classy way. So. And now we're on to 24-25. We've already started. Last week, football started. That was our first fall sport to kick off. Today we had girls golf. Tomorrow, girls tennis and girls swim. And then next week we have cross country, boys soccer, and boys and girls volleyball. I put the dates on there because I get this email from time to time. When's the homecoming? The game is October 4th. And the dance, we're looking for chaperones if anybody's interested. The dance is October 5th. That's it for me. Go Indians. Any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, we don't have any recognitions. We don't have any policies. We're going to move on we're going to move on to citizens' comments.
When I call your name, you're going to get 3 minutes to talk, and I'll give you a 30-second warning. First up is Ashley Wright.
Thank you. I understand that there will be discussion and presentation tonight regarding the district's ongoing participation with Scholastic Book Fairs. I wanted to take the opportunity to offer a viewpoint that I know is similar to many other parents in the district. As an Eagleville parent, Scholastic Book Fairs, which are held twice per year at our school, are not a major cash fundraiser for us, but its impact on literacy and other school resources is still incredibly important. Its impact is achieved through a number of Scholastic-specific programs. The Scholastic Fair has allowed our families and the PTO to bolster and refresh our classroom libraries. This is especially important at our school as we have a smaller library than any other school in our district. Teacher wish lists are posted for full transparency, and our families voluntarily purchase and donate these books to our teachers. What isn't fulfilled by our generous families is filled through Scholastic Dollars at the close of each fair. Scholastic Dollars have also enabled the school to offer each student the gift of a book of their choice for their birthday. Credit earned through the Scholastic programs have helped our staff supplement their classrooms with things such as special desks, bookshelf cubbies, STEM lab supplies, and much more. Scholastic runs an All for Books program, which offers patrons the opportunity to round up or otherwise straight donate to the program. Our student council shows leadership by deciding where to allocate these funds, and it's allowed Eagleville to donate hundreds of dollars in books to local organizations like shelters and the Ronald McDonald House. This past year, our PTO, in conjunction with the credits earned through Scholastics, were able to offer every student the opportunity to choose a book at the fair free to them, opening the further literacy regardless of a family's ability to pay. I understand that you are being asked by members of the community to seek an alternative to Scholastic based on claims of a few titles and topics being represented in our fairs. As a parent volunteer at these fairs, I can assure you that I have never seen anything inappropriate at our fairs. More compelling for your discussion today, as an executive board member for the school's PTO, which, by the way, we fully run our Scholastic Book Fairs without district staff involvement, there have been no parent complaints about our fair brought to my attention. The alternatives being presented tonight are fine book fairs, but as you will see, none of them offer as much back to our schools as Scholastic. All of them will still allow access
30 seconds.
that some may feel are controversial. I would ask that before you remove full access to Scholastic at our schools, you each visit a book fair, experience them for yourselves. Further, I would ask you to consider the loss of valuable resources that each school will feel based on your decision. There is simply not another fair program that is able to hold a candle to Scholastic, and for so many of our students and their families, books bring a much needed light. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Peoples.
Good evening,
Thank you to the board for allowing comments. I must warn you that I hate.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I
Thank
must
you.
warn you that I hate speaking in front of adults, so I took my glasses off so I can't see you. But I know that we are all here for one reason, and that's because we want what's best for kids. I have 4 students who are either currently enrolled in Mukwonago or have graduated from Mukwonago. Most of them did the Battle of the Books at Rolling Hills, and I was disheartened to hear that that program is no longer being offered. It is being replaced. And now I find out that the Scholastic Book Fair is also looking to be replaced. I understand that this decision was made because that you received some letters concerned with the topics that certain books address. I can only speculate what those letters were, the topics were, so I'm just going off my talking points. The majority of students at Mukwonago Services are white Caucasian. However, I know a small percentage of students are also other races. The majority of students and families that you service I know are straight, but we also do have a small percentage of students who are part of the LGBTQIA population. So how do we decide who is more important? Who deserves to be validated? Is there a criteria or a checklist that is used? Just because they make up a small percentage doesn't mean that they don't deserve, or that they deserve to be marginalized or made feel less than. The district prides itself on creating a sense of community. Representation of all kinds of people is what makes people feel included and makes them feel a part of the community. I know that the world is changing, and I know that people keep saying topics are being shoved down your throat. Change is hard for anyone, but change makes us stronger. It makes us critical thinkers. It challenges our beliefs, which is the scary part. But it also makes us better, more intelligent, compassionate creatures. My fear is that when we start limiting certain topics, it creates a slippery slope. Where do we stop? Which topics are controversial next? What if there's a character in a book that mentions that they prayed? Will you receive letters from parents saying that they don't feel praying is acceptable? What if a character in a book comes from a divorced family? And a family doesn't feel that divorce is a topic that should be discussed at school. What if characters of a certain book are a plumber or a holistic doctor or a coach, and families just don't feel that those are acceptable professions? Where do we draw the line?
30 seconds.
Controversial issues have been around forever. We have always had people of other races, religions, and sexual orientations. It's just being talked about more frequently and more openly. The way certain groups of people are treated in the past and even now are not okay. It's just that these marginalized groups are speaking up for themselves. They are no longer willing to be complicit. They don't want to receive special treatment. They just want to be treated as equals. They want to be valued and heard. Isn't that what we want for all of our students? Exposing our kids to diverse topics is how we teach this. It makes our kids better than us.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Come on. What is going on? I got major malfunction here. What am I doing wrong here? Next up, Jay Clark. Okay. Next up, Michelle Washerbeck Hackett. Is that correct, Michelle? Thank you. What is going on? It just went off. You have 3 minutes, and I'll cut it off at 2:45. Here we go. Sorry.
I won't need 3 minutes. I am so impressed with the previous speakers. I think they really represented my views as well. I'm an Eagleville parent, and I really value our Scholastic Book Fairs as well as our Battle of the Books. I hope that we can continue to do those sorts of things, to offer those pieces of access to our students to fully represent, all comers. And, I also wanted to say thank you so much. I really appreciate the cell phone guidance that you recently let out. I appreciate that, but I just want to voice my support for Scholastic. Again, these other ladies were so much more eloquent. Bravo to them. I agree.
Thank you.
Next up, Melissa Rankin.
Hello.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello. All right, so back in May, the Rolling Hills PTO received an inquiry regarding the
funds raised by our Scholastic Book Fair and how these funds are utilized. Until last week, we have not heard anything further on the matter from the school board. When last August 5th, we were informed that the Scholastic Book Fair was going to be needed to be put on hold. As of last week, we've already signed our agreement for our October book fair. Several members of the Rolling Hills PTO, including myself, have written Dr. Cook and the school board asking what led us to this point. Why are we considering other vendors for our book fair? The Scholastic Book Fair is an easy, optional program that promotes literacy. It supports goals set by our teachers, state, and district. It supports classrooms. It raises money for our school, and there are so many other more benefits. Which leads me to my main concern. With all these benefits, I struggle to find a logical reason behind stopping the book fair. Why are we contemplating a change in vendors? Have some families expressed concerns about certain books sold at the fair? If that is the case, can we have an open discussion about these titles and subjects? The Rolling Hills PTO has not received any parent complaints about the content. I hope the real issue will be brought to light soon so we can have a meaningful discussion. In our family, if we disagree with the store's business practices, we simply choose not to shop there. We don't attempt to shut the business down. I have respectfully request that we engage in further discussions about the book fair in this upcoming school year. Please allow PTOs the time to utilize our scholastic dollars during the 24-25 school year. Additionally, we should thoroughly vet the other vendors, considering factors such as references, book selection, and price points. Decisions of this magnitude should not be made hastily without proper evaluation. Currently, our Rolling Hills PTO has $8,000 in scholastic dollars, which are essentially credits, which are used, as other people have explained, for magazine subscriptions, just a ton of great things that we don't have to pay for from our budget. If we change vendors or cancel this fall's book fair, we risk losing $8,000, not to mention the $15,000 or so that we raised during the school year. The book fair is a fundraiser, and it's a simple, easy event for all of us to bring in a large portion
30 seconds, Melissa.
of our fundraising budget. Our budget is already stretched thin, and we do not have the capacity to absorb these additional expenses that were previously covered by the scholastic dollars. Please remember that each of you were elected to represent the interests of those within our district. I urge you to listen to the MASD constituents on this matter rather than the personal opinions or a small percentage of families who view the Scholastic Book Fair as problematic. Again, I can only assume this is the driving force behind these discussions because we have not received a clear explanation for the proposed changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Turn off your times.
Sorry, what is going on here? Sorry about that. Next up, Alicia. I can't read your last name, Alicia, I'm sorry. Presendoffer? Thank you.
Yeah, well, my name is Alicia Presendoffer. I currently have 3 children in this district. They've all participated in the Scholastic Book Fair throughout their time here. They still will participate in the future, hopefully, if the discussions continue to go further. I'm also an educator in a different school district, and we also use the Scholastic Book Fair in our district as well. I have seen it from both sides. I've seen it as a parent, and I've seen it as an educator. I've seen what the book offerings are. I have seen what the benefits are. I have received the benefits as an educator from the proceeds from the Scholastic Book Fair from year to year. And coming from a district where our budgets are even tighter and even smaller, the Scholastic Book Fair is crucial to providing additional resources to our school and programs. So as an educator and as a parent, I would be highly disappointed to see a program such as this be terminated or changed to a different program. Also, as an educator, I very much value the books that Scholastic offers. They level their books. They provide a lot of options for parents. They provide bilingual books, which is highly important in the district that I teach in. So they offer a lot of different options that other programs may not offer. As I said before, as a parent of kids in the district who's participated in the book fair, I have never once had an issue with any of the books that have been presented at the book fairs. Had there been a book that maybe I wouldn't have agreed with, we could have a family discussion at home, which I feel is very important for families to have these discussions with their children, to talk about amongst the families, to decide what is acceptable for them at home, instead of having these decisions made broadly by the district. But I have never seen, as a teacher in the district, in another district, or as a parent, even any book or topic that I was uncomfortable with or felt that shouldn't have been in the book fairs in itself. So I'm asking that we have open conversations and communications to continue to talk about what kind of programs we can provide going forth, and hopefully keeping the Scholastic Book Fairs in our schools for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel Hubinger?
Hi, Rachel.
Good evening. I am here tonight to encourage the school district to lift the hold that they have placed on Scholastic Book Fairs throughout our district. You were all elected to represent the people of our community and hear their voice, not just the voice of those closest to you or whose thoughts and opinions align with your personal beliefs. From board policy, the board declares and thereby reaffirms its intent to maintain two-way communications with citizens in the district. Tonight you will hear information on other options for book fairs outside of Scholastic. When considering this, I encourage you, number one, know why we are making this change. It is my understanding that this is being looked into because the district received complaints regarding the content of book selections through Scholastic. Our PTO has never received complaints directly. If this is indeed the case, this is an optional event that promotes literacy. Perhaps removing it from our schools completely is not a good choice. They might be an opt-out option for those who choose not to participate, much like human growth and development. These book fairs are widely attended by hundreds of visitors at our school alone and supported by our community, as represented by the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent at them annually in our district. These events are scheduled with intention during grandparent and parent lunch week to help bridge the gap between school and home. Does this decision support the opinion of your community? Number two, look further into these other options. The information you are being presented with tonight was given by a sales rep or the owner of a company trying to obtain your business. Talk to the volunteers who run these events. Join social media groups where people actually attend these fairs and give feedback. Is there availability for the 24-25 school year? Do they offer the control of content some of you are looking for? I think at the end of the day, you will find that the book's content is pretty similar amongst these vendors. It is important that we continue to have representation of all students through literature. Number three, how does this affect our schools, students, and parent groups? The obvious impact comes from a financial standpoint.
30 seconds, Rachel.
What happens with the contracts and the funds sitting in our accounts? Scholastic offers 50% return on our investment. At Rolling Hills, this funds books, magazine subscriptions. It helps promote our general fund. This is not a conversation about curriculum, but that of a choice program. Most members on this board ran on a platform of transparency and not taking away the voice of the parents. I am asking that you find a way for continued dialogue with the community you were elected to represent.
Time's
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you.
Samira Surfort? Did I say that right, Samira? Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Samira Surfort. I have two children that attend Rolling Hills, and I live and work in the community. My husband also coaches for Mukwonago as well. I think one thing that we can all agree here tonight is that parents have the right to manage what their children are watching, reading, listening to. I don't think that's any source of disagreement by any of us here. Now, what that is we're watching, reading, etc., of course we could debate all night. the key that I think we really need to remember when talking about this topic is that this, as many people have said in previous discussions, is a choice program. And we can make it even more clear that is a choice. If a parent is in disagreement on what Scholastic is presenting and do not want them to be part of this, attend the book fairs, get the books for their birthdays, that is an option. That is something that can be done at the beginning of the school year with permission slips and allows for everyone who does agree with Scholastic to continue with this. What I do not agree with is taking this choice away. This is something, as Rachel has mentioned, we are entrusting our board to not only just vote based on their views, but to look at all views of the community. And in this case, what's very clear is that everyone can agree that a choice is the best option when we have this. Having a choice for all of our students on what they want, and with their parents' permission on what they want to read, is key here. And if we take this away, this is an extremely slippery slope, and really concerns me as a parent for the representation that we've given here tonight. Now, as Rachel said, I don't quite know what the details are on why this is being brought up in discussion. I'm hoping to understand that today, but I hope that as these discussions are had, we just all remember that this is a choice and that we can choose to allow people to have that choice, or we can completely take it away, which in my personal opinion is not the option here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie? I can't pronounce your last name, nor can I read it. Julie, I'm sorry. Thank you.
My name's Julie Faley-Silda, and I have two children that attend Prairie View Elementary School. I first want to thank each of you for giving us the time to talk and for you guys to also listen, and hopefully we can have a collaborative discussion about this. So as a clinical mental health substance abuse counselor, I have a huge drive, but I'm also a big volunteer, and I co-manage the book fair at Prairie View every spring and every fall. So we have always had the option of having that choice of which books to have, and we've always had the discussion with the representative at Scholastic as to which books are appropriate. We ensure that they're elementary age appropriate. They are not guarded or guided towards any children that are higher than elementary age levels. We also have given parents the choice every time that if they do not like a book that their child has brought home, that they are more than welcome to come back and either return the book for the same or lesser value, or they can just return the money back and get their money back. So those are definitely choices that we do give parents. I do agree with what every single person has said up here before, that it is a choice program, and we want to make sure that we give our future presidents, teachers, firemen, any field that they choose to do, that they have the option and choice to select what they read. And if the parents are in disagreement, they have that choice to have it returned or sign the permission slip. That is something easy that we can definitely do. I do beg and I do plead that you let us have this open discussion and try and come to a mutual agreement to where we help support our schools. Something that we've done at Prairie View is we have taken the option to save the money and put one of the recent things is the past couple of book fairs, we've helped put that money towards the new playground that we need. It definitely needed it. It's safer. I'm so excited to watch the kids have the opportunity to play on this new equipment. So please, I do ask for your open communication and further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to consent agenda. We're looking for the approval of the school board meeting minutes of July 29th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, this is approved by consent. We're going to move down to student learning topics.
Okay. The first item is just an update on our ELA pilot that will be taking place this year in grades 6 through 11. We are going to be piloting a resource called My Perspectives by Savis. At the end of June, we did have training for all of our teachers who are participating in the pilot. And that includes all 6th through 8th grade ELA teachers, and then additionally freshman, sophomore, and junior English teachers. After the training, the teams have been meeting to work on developing these units that they are piloting, and that includes ensuring alignment to the standards and then pacing out the units. At the high school level, the teachers will be piloting 2 units and replacing 2 of their current units with those SAVIS units. For 6th through 8th grade, we are going to be piloting 4 units. And that's a little bit of a change from what was originally presented. And the reason for that is just due to the need for a structured and integrated resource for those grade levels. We want to really make sure that we have consistency of our ELA instruction and then efficiency in our ELA routines. So during the year, we will be closely monitoring the ELA curriculum and instruction through this pilot. We will evaluate the effectiveness of the resources and then gather feedback to determine next steps. So I will provide further updates for you as we move throughout the year. Any questions on that?
I don't see any. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is just some information regarding our upcoming August professional development days. Our teachers and professional staff will be officially returning on August 26th, and they're going to be participating in 4 days of professional learning that will occur from August 26th through the 29th. Those days are going to include both building-led and then district-led activities. Some of the building work is going to include rolling out the building goals, which teams of teachers worked on last week as a district. We came together and we built building goals that are aligned to our district key performance indicators, so they'll roll those out with their staff. We also worked last week with our guiding coalitions from each building to develop plans to continue to push forth our professional learning community practices within the district. So they will work on those things as well. Additionally, the elementary staff is going to be spending some time working on planning and preparing for the implementation of the new Math Bridges curriculum, and they will also receive PlayWorks training. And then for district-led professional development activities, we will have the whole district coming together on August 28th at the PAC for a session that's going to be led by Dr. Louise Cruz, who is an expert on professional learning communities. So he is going to focus on helping us to continue to strengthen our PLC practices in the district and ensure success for all of our students. And then Rachel will also be providing training for all staff on the new evaluation model. So it's going to definitely be a busy 4 days of learning.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Crosby?
The building goals, are those going to piggyback off of the goals that they set for last school year? Because I know some of them were kind of cumulative and we needed to look a few years ahead. Okay.
Yeah, some of them, it just depended on what the building, they dug into their data from last year, and it just depends on what they saw as a need. Some of them did piggyback on their goal from last year.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, up next, book fair presentation.
All right, well, I am here tonight to share the research that I have done on 5 different book fair options that are available to our schools and to our PTOs. When I started doing this, I tried really hard to gather similar information on each of the different book fairs. But as I started to build my slides, I realized that I do have more information from some vendors versus others, and that's just based on the amount of communication that I was able to have with different vendors. So some of their sales reps were a lot more, I should say, better communicators. They'd call me, they'd write me back. Some of the vendors I couldn't get to write me back. And so I had to go off of what I could find on websites and things like that. So you'll see that some of my slides have more information than others, and that's just due to the fact that I was able to have better conversations with some of the vendors than others. When I was presenting, I decided to do the different book fair options in alphabetical order. So I'm going to start right off with Blue Ribbon Book Fairs. The owner, Greg Carter, actually used to work for Scholastic, and Greg was actually wonderful to work with, calls me back all the time, sent me emails, just super easy to work with. And he basically said he used to work for Scholastic, and he feels he runs a very similar fair. He said sometimes people will come through and they don't notice a difference. Obviously, that's his perspective. He does consider input from local school districts, so looking at what content do we want to put out in our elementary schools, we would have input on that. The focus of Blue Ribbon Books is definitely more on the books. You can actually request not to send all of the little trinkets if you don't want them. He does have pens, pencils, and things like that, but the focus there is on building literacy, and so I think the distractors of some of those other items can cause kids to spend their money in other places, maybe unless on the books. So you do have the option to either have those things sent or not. That's up to us as a school system and as a PTO. They do offer themed book fairs that change. The incentive for schools, because obviously this is our fundraiser, it's 20 to 25% cash back, and it's basically the more you sell, the more you get back. There is a book option, or there is a cash option, or you can do a mixture of both. So if you want your money to be spent on books for your school, you can do that. If you want the cash, you can do that as well. Books are discounted 75% off the cover prices, and there are options to have buy one, get one free book fairs. So those are options that are available. They also offer discounts to teachers and free setup and pack up. So when I asked Greg about this, he said they actually come and set the fair up for you, help you run it, and they also help you pack it up. Was actually a difference than most of the other book fairs, in that a lot of the setup is on the schools and on the PTOs to do themselves. And they basically say that they are the owners of this company, so anything you need, you just call them and they will get back to you. There are options to do prepaid gift cards, so if grandma or grandpa want to send students to the book fair with a prepaid gift card, you can do that. And then there is also free use of Scout the Reading Retriever costume, so any volunteers for that, probably welcome. So I do want to, I also want to share that on each of my slides, I included the information that I gleaned from all of the conversations that I've had with the reps, but I also included their contact information, the website. So if you wanted to go on the website, they include pictures so that you can look at the fairs and see that they are very similar to what Scholastic fairs look like at a glance. And then when I reached out to Greg, I said, is there a way of seeing the titles of the books that are offered? And he sent me a sample selection of titles. He said, obviously they change, so you would have to get an updated one when you want to host a fair. And they are currently available in the fall still, but they are getting tight. So that was one thing I did ask. Right. Literati book fairs was the next.
Can I just ask you some questions? Based on citizens' comments, do they offer bilingual books?
That is a great question. It would be something I would need to look into a little bit further.
Okay. And then you already covered availability. How about return policy?
For
if
the
you
books?
could check on that. Yeah, if somebody
I can check on it
thinks
as
about,
well.
okay,
I'm not
perfect.
sure about
Thank
that.
you.
They did say that if there is a book that they don't have that you want them to get, that they would work with us to get the books. So if they were open to suggestions, there's actually a link on their website for you to suggest books that might not be on their lists. So that was an option.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh.
Just a quick question. For the buy one, get one, do the prices get adjusted so that the schools still get the proper amount of money?
So I did ask him that because I said if they're discounted, and he said that in his experience, because they're discounted, people just buy more. So if you have $20 to spend at the book fair, kids typically still spend $20. They're just getting more books for that amount. But I did ask that same question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next option was literati book fairs. Shayla Upshur is our contact. I had a very difficult time getting information from Literati. I'm going to be completely transparent on that. I sent emails asking lots of questions. It appears that the content is developed without input from schools and local districts. I asked in my emails if there was any opportunities for us to have input in what was sent, and did not get an answer. So the focus definitely for them is more on books. There are no toys or trinkets that are sold. So if that is something we want, that is not something that's offered through Literati, but again, their focus is on building literacy and having the money go towards books. They also offer themed book fairs. This school year, they have a galactic and an arcade theme. Their bookshelves are shipped for easy setup. They have on their website a video that actually shows how easy all of the shelving is to set up, and it looked pretty simple. But the setup is done by schools and by the PTOs. Fundraising can earn cash, books, or Tidal Wave gift cards. So Tidal Wave is a book source company that a lot of our librarians use, and so that is another option that Literati offers that I haven't seen in some of the other book fairs. But again, cash, books, or those Tidal Wave gift cards. Online shopping is also available, and they can do digital gift cards. That seems to be pretty standard for both students and teachers. And you save 10% more when you book 2 fairs in 1 year, which most of our schools do a fall and a spring, so they would benefit then from that 10% savings. But again, a lot of the information here I had to glean from the website. So every time I sent an email, I would just get an email back saying, well, if you give me the information of all of your schools, we can set you up with a rep and then we can work with you. So it was sort of that situation. So we can get more information. I just had to give all of the elementary schools information to them first. So, any questions on that one?
What's the percent back on that one?
That one, again, no information back from them because they didn't answer my emails. Which again, I think is a concern, you know, if we're looking at what to do, you know, definitely a vendor that's not getting back to us is a little bit tricky. But again, I can look into it more if warranted. All right, this next one is Rainbow Bookseller Book Fairs. So this is actually a tiny bookstore in Milwaukee that offers book fairs. They are only open 2 days a week. I called and left a message and have not heard back. But it sounds like it was the original owner sold it to Joe Crows and this Mary Beth Dugan. Again, only open 2 days a week. It looks a little bit more like they have kind of like an old-fashioned setup, so they have like a candy counter and things like that in their store. They said that books are sold at the cover price, and then you get 25% of the total sales going to the schools, and fundraising earns either a check or a book. And again, I didn't have a ton of communication with them either. They didn't, on their website, seem to have a email address. So I just called and left messages. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then Scholastic Book Fairs. So Susan Olson was the contact that I worked with. I know she works with Rolling Hills specifically. And Susan was also wonderful, similar to Greg, very easy to communicate with, called me back, wrote me detailed responses to all of my questions. And so definitely very helpful in that regard. Bookshelves are sent to the schools, so schools do set up on their own. They offer different grade bands of shelves, so you can order a K2 shelf, a 3-5 shelf, and then a 6-8. So it's up to whoever's hosting the fair, which of those grade level bands are offered. And I know historically when I've gone to the book fairs, I've seen them pretty clearly labeled that this is like a K2 shelf. So as parents are walking through and as kids are walking through, they can see which of the bookshelves belong to their age group. So historically, Scholastic has offered this Celebration Voices collection, and it was an optional shelf. And Susan said when she would call schools, she would say you can either opt in or opt out of this shelf. That is no longer an option. All books that are included on that shelf are now being sent to the fairs, and they're not on a separate shelf. So one of the offerings that Susan says that they have is you can use a digital preview tool, but all of the books are sent to the school. So once they get to the school, whoever's hosting the fair can use this preview tool and enter in any content, topic, search term, and Scholastic will generate for them a list of the books that follow any of those content items. And then it would be sort of the responsibility of whatever the host, whoever's hosting the fair, to determine whether those titles are put out on the shelves or not. So that is their offering for sending that shelf mixed in with the other books. Fundraising for Scholastic earns Scholastic dollars, which we've heard about, cash or books. A combination is also, like, they don't say you have to use all cash or have to all books. You can intermingle how you want to use the fundraising. It's 50% back from all sales. Those Scholastic dollars can be used for things like Scholastic Magazine, Scholastic News, and then there's also something called a Scholastic Teacher Store, which sells items like furniture and carpet and manipulatives and things like that. So those Scholastic dollars can also be used in that teacher store. For students, digital e-wallets are available. Online shopping is also available. And then at the fair, teachers each get a $5 off coupon that they can use however they see fit. So we do have that option. And I do have a couple, I know there were some questions about Scholastic that I can answer based off of conversations I've had with Susan. There is no penalty for breaking a contract with Scholastic, and all of the Scholastic dollars that have been earned are still for the schools and can still be used. So they aren't losing any of those dollars by ending a relationship if that were to happen. So I did look into that.
Is it possible to get like a categorized sales breakdown from Scholastic, like showing trinkets versus books, that sort of thing?
That might be a question to ask our PTO presidents who work on that, or I can ask Susan if that's something she can give us access to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about Scholastic?
So I'm assuming with the 50% back, books are quite a bit more then, right? Versus the other ones?
She did not tell me if they were discounted. So my guess is that they're cover price. I mean, as a parent, when I would go shopping, I was paying the cover price and then the 50% back, yes. So it would be 50% off of the cover price of the books.
So if you're looking at like Blue Ribbon fairs, they say the books are 75% off. What are they comparing that to? Cover price?
To the cover price.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? Okay. And then Skytree Book Fairs was the last book fair vendor that I looked into. This was a company that was developed in partnership with Kirk Cameron. They offer a significantly limited selection. So when you go on their website, it talks about how they offer 200 plus book titles. And I think in a district where we're used to being able to buy thousands of titles, this one offers 200 plus, which definitely makes the selection smaller than what we're used to. Convenient setup, it's done by the schools though, and then they also offer online shopping options. Their in-person book fairs offer 20% in cash or 40% in Skytree bucks. So it's kind of like the Scholastic dollars, but those Skytree bucks would go towards books and things like that. Their online fairs, which you have the option of just hosting online fairs, would be 45% in Skytree bucks. However, when I did email the rep, she did tell me that they are booked for fall already. So for that particular season, they said that they would be able to accommodate spring, but not fall. So any questions on that one?
I don't see any.
Ma'am, your time limit's up. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, we have comments, and this isn't the appropriate time. Yeah, they're asking the board, because it's the board's time to do its work. So I apologize. All right. Any other questions for Michelle?
I have a question about Blue Ribbon. Did they offer online sales as well? I don't see it on here, but maybe you mentioned it and I just didn't hear it.
I will look into that as well.
So Michelle, of the ones that you looked at, if you had to give us your top 2 or 3 vendors, who would be your top 2 or 3 based on kind of everything, you know, ability for selection, price, what do we get back from them, customer service, because that's going to be huge, you know, setup, ease of setup, things like that. What would be your like top 2 or 3?
I think as far as, if I had to pick my top 2, it would be Blue Ribbon and Scholastic, based off of, one, the ability that I had to communicate. So, like, honestly, Greg was on vacation and he called me back. And he called me on his personal cell and said, if you need anything else, call me during the school board meeting if you need to, like, whatever you need. Same thing with Susan. Could tell that even late at night, she was thinking of my questions, and then she would write another follow-up response. So, honestly, those were the 2, in my opinion, that are going to be the easiest for schools to work with and are going to benefit the students the most.
Just for everybody here, like some of the comments that I've heard from parents were obviously the book content, some of the books, too many trinkets, too much impulse buying for their kids as they're, what's that? I'm just telling you, like, the feedback that I get. And then some of the parents said when they go through the book fairs, they see like the same books when they go to fair after fair, and they're looking for more of a variety of books. So I'm just letting you know the feedback that I got. Okay. Now's not a time for you guys, like, it's not a discussion back and forth. It's just the way the boards are run. The board is got to do its work right now. Well, I'm just, for transparency, I'm just telling you what the parents are saying. So, is there any more questions for Michelle? Vito.
I haven't heard any of the problems with any of the books or any of the stuff. So, is there a? We know what was the issue that prompted all this? I'd like to know what it was specifically, what in detail, what books were the problem or what the issues were, so that I'd have a chance to read them and kind of make my own judgment call.
There's people reaching out, and those were the things that were brought up. So we started looking into not getting rid of book fairs like social media has, or we're just looking at alternative resources.
Yeah. I was just, if it's possible, if we could get like what the problem books are. I'd be interested to be, so I'd have a chance to read them and go through them myself to see if, just so I have context. And
okay. Any other questions?
When do we, so if a change is going to be made, I guess, who makes that decision? And when do we need to make that decision by in order to allow the PTOs to continue with their book fairs?
So in talking with Michelle, from the timing with the companies, I mean, we would have to, within a relatively short period of time, lock into a company as they book up, as Michelle mentioned. At least one of the companies was booked for the school year. So the longer that it would take to make a decision, the less availability that other companies would have. And there's the planning piece. Historically, as was mentioned earlier, our school district has run this during the grandparent or VIP weeks. Knowing, I believe that those are on the calendar, we would have to try to partner with them. However, if there was flexibility in those VIP weeks, we could move the VIP week to align with the availability of a book company.
Do you have any opinion on any of the book fairs and the companies, the resources?
You know, from a standpoint of availability, I do agree with Michelle that Blue Ribbon and Scholastic both provide a great opportunity for us. From a timing standpoint, you know, I would have to ask Michelle to follow up with the companies to see what the availability is. You know, this would be something that, because this is listed as a discussion information item tonight, you know, this isn't an action evening. It would be something that we could come back in 2 weeks and answer some of the questions that were asked tonight. particular to some of the selection that was, that caused concern, return policies, the sale, the money for the trinkets, and then talk about, timing as to which company then would meet our needs as a school system.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Michelle. Now is not the time for the community talk. That was during public comments you can make? Okay. You can send us an email and we can get back to you. Okay. Like finance and facility topics are up next.
All right, so I'm gonna go through the budget here very quickly. We went through this in depth last meeting, so I don't feel the need to, unless you guys have questions or concerns or want clarifying explanations. In totality, the summary of the budget is being presented here on this exhibit. So again, when we get to the annual meeting, this is what I'm proposing that we bring. So this is 99.5% aligned with what I showed you in July 29th. A couple of things changed, very small, but I did add grants. So we do get some grants each year. It's one-time money in, one-time money out. I've added those. You can see that in Fund 10, we have a balanced budget, which I think is one of the marching orders you've given to me, and we're bringing that here. So we've gone through each of these budgets again, or each of these funds, I should say, at our last meeting, but I am proposing and recommending to you that we move forward with this budget. So if you're comfortable with this, then we'll look to, I'll look for you to approve this as our preliminary budget, which we'll take to the annual meeting. Do you guys have any questions about anything that we've discussed previously or here? There is a fund-by-fund exhibit to show you the money in and the money out. So if you have those questions, please let me know. Is there anything I can answer for you right now?
Was this updated based on the last lunch pricing?
Yes. So there, as we talk about some of those changes, that's one. So you can see that in Fund 50, there's 2.6 million in and 2.7 million out. So that's a very small, a much smaller deficit than what we talked about. And as we look to increase prices at the beginning of next year, we'll close that deficit out entirely. So a two-step process. Yep.
Tom, I saw donations on there, and we were talking about donations from book fairs.
Yep.
Can anybody anytime make donations and kind of
Oh, yeah. If
earmark
anybody has
wherever
money they'd like to give to the district, you just need to find someone who works here and tell us. Yeah, so I mean, donations come through in a variety of different ways. A lot of it's in conjunction with PTOs. There's glow runs at Clarendon. There's some other, dance. I think Big Bend Elementary's had a dance. Every school kind of just does it based on like the thoughts and ambitions of the PTO. There's private donors that do things anonymously. So there are donations that come through periodically, which are great. And typically what we do is if the donor wants the funds to be restricted, say, look, I'll donate, but I want them to be, the funds to be spent on X, Y, or Z, or something just very specifically, then we typically always honor that, so long as it supports the mission of our schools and, isn't something that we wouldn't normally buy with our own money. So, yeah. Did I answer your question there?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. And then I'll move on here. All right, then. So as we talk about the tax levy, again, we're looking to do the same thing here, where you're gonna take action on two things: to approve the budget and to approve the tax levy. So scenario 2, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger here. So scenario 2 is what I'm recommending, and we have time. This is a preliminary tax levy. The final tax levy will go down in October. I understand, and I'm going to get to this later as we talk about the referendum at the middle school. But at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of fear of the what's an assessment, what's the reassessment going to do to my taxes, and I respect that. So we'll address that. But we are able to drop taxes by 0.5%, which, if you go to the very bottom of this exhibit, we're cutting taxes by $162,000. And I'm recommending that this is what we bring to the annual meeting, because I think at the end of the day,
with reassessments taking place, the vast majority of our residents will find that their K-12 portion of their tax bill is going to get smaller from last year to this year. Okay, we could spend more time talking about the final tax levy in September and then again in October when we get there. But as we look to make a tax levy happen here and that we will take to the voters of the community, this tax levy here, you can see there's 3 parts to it: levy 1, levy 2, and levy 3. The math for levy 1 is all above here. Again, it's our count of students multiplied by the amount of our students, so on and so forth. If we just fast track that, the levy for the operating levy is $25,799,000. All right, our referendum levy, this gives us the opportunity to not only cut taxes, but to continue to aggressively pay off our debt associated with the project at Mukwonago High School in 2016. And then we have that final community service levy, which by and large pays for our school resource officers at the middle school and the high school. So when we add all 3 levies up, that is a decrease of 0.5% from last year to this year. That's what I'm recommending, but you do have some latitude there. Do you have any questions I can answer about this?
How much, if we went to the 0.5% cut, how much would that impact us prepaying debt?
So here, I'll just use this clicker here. All right. So our normal stride was to cut taxes by 0.2%. So as we look at that decrease, that's about $65,000. And then as we go from decreasing taxes by 0.2% to 0.5%, we're going from cutting taxes by $65,000 to $160,000. So about $100,000 less of an ability to prepay. So you could take it in either direction. This is really a board choice. I'm just giving you a variety of scenarios here, but ultimately at the end of the day, I can bring back more. If you want me to bring back some other scenarios, I can. I just need a final decision 2 weeks from today. And then whatever you decide, I take it to the community here in September at the annual meeting. Okay. So if there's something else you'd like, please let me know, and I can make it happen. Okay.
Vito?
Do you know what our interest rate is?
On our existing debt at Mukwonago High School, we refinanced when interest rates were really low. So it's in the upper 1s, the low 2s. Yeah, that's really.
What do we
I didn't. It's not like I go out there and demand interest rates. Like the market's the market, and when the time was right, we refinanced. So it worked out well for everybody.
What are we earning on the money that we have?
5.5%.
Does it make sense for us to prepay? I think about it like the mortgage. Like people say, if your mortgage, like my mortgage is what, 3% or whatever it is, and if I can get 5%. It doesn't make sense to prepay the mortgage because you're losing the difference in.
So that's a great point. I'd say at the same time, if you can prepay your 30-year mortgage in half the time, would you? When you do that, you are eliminating future interest costs that you don't have to pay, and you're getting out of debt more quickly. So.
Do we really?
So I'll tell you what, Vito, we're going to, and I don't want to skip your question, but we're going to answer your question, and we look at the stream of payments we have left. That's a part of our referendum presentation. So can I defer your question for a few minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Anything else tax levy related? Okay. All right, then. What's next on the agenda there? All right, transportation here. So just as a reminder here, bus routes are starting to be developed, and I'm just going to go back for a second here. So as we talk about the guidelines our bus company uses when they make bus routes happen, okay? We have, it'll come back, just bear with it. All right. So again, as we take a look at this, I know it's a little small on the screen here, but it's in your memos here that I provided here. We provide transportation to all students except those who live within 2 miles or less of their assigned school. And in that sense, then, we have a hazardous transportation map. And here it is. So this is the map of Mukwonago, the MASD. The areas that are highlighted in pink, and I'm just going to set this down. Craig, I'm going to come use yours here. Yep. Okay. So the areas in pink, this is this map has been with the district for quite some time, but there's just a couple updates. I'll highlight those right now. So this is a hazardous transportation area that's on County Road E. Basically, we expect no students to cross County Road E to go to Prairie View Elementary School, right? So every student that attends Prairie View, they get busing. Just to be thorough, we said the same thing about Eagleville. We expect no kid to walk to Eagleville. Same is true for Section and Rolling Hills, obviously with the county roads. We don't want kids crossing those at any point in time. So, you know, my kiddos, we could probably walk to school daily, but, you know, at grades 6 and under, we don't expect our kids at Section and Rolling Hills to do that. So all kids that attend those 4 schools are going to be provided transportation. County Road NN, so here's Highway 83. County Road NN used to be a hazard, and then we had 2 intersections installed with a crosswalk on the east side by the PAC, the east side of Mukwonago High School. So with that crosswalk now, that's no longer a hazard. We had a sheriff's deputy come out, take a look at that. They said, yep, it's in our estimation no longer a hazard. So students that live in the Fairwind subdivision, when they attend Parkview Middle School and the high school, they are no longer provided transportation, they walk, okay? So that's one update from the last time a school board took a look at this map. So this area here is no longer a hazard, okay? That's not to say that it's immune from all safety risks. Every time we take a walk in our neighborhood, there's gonna be some risk, right? There's nothing that's perfectly safe in this world. But in the sense of what we're talking about here, there's sidewalks, there's cross guards. You talk about the age of the students, you know, 7th grade and above going to Parkview. Those students should be able to navigate a sidewalk in these areas, right? These areas here along ES, and this is East Veterans Way. So as we talk about the, what's the name? Rainbow Park subdivision, is that the name of it? River Park, thank you. River Park is within 2 miles of Clarendon, but we don't expect those kids to walk down East Veterans Way or any kids that might live in the Two Rivers subdivision that attend any school. There's some in these areas here. Hidden Lakes attends Clarendon. We don't want those kids walking on the shoulder of County Road ES. So we have those designated as hazardous. And then as we take a look at Big Bend Elementary School here, we don't want kids walking on Edgewood, 164 County Road U, or this part here of County Road L. So that's our hazardous transportation map. I'll look, if there's suggestions, if there's other questions you might have, let me know. But we look to just adopt this and then share this with the sheriff's deputy of Waukesha County. They actually keep a copy of this on file. I'd share that with them. So we're just kind of keeping this somewhat current. Any questions about that? Okay.
Hey, Tom, do all the buses have cameras?
Yes.
Every one of them?
All of our buses have stop arm cameras and cameras on the interior. It's kind of like
have we noticed a decrease in
incidents? What I can guarantee is that every single illegal passer gets caught and fined.
Okay, that works.
I'd be curious to know what the cash revenue is for the police departments, because they're starting to collect more. Hey, good for them, right? But I'll ask to see, now that we've had it for 1 full year, this is the year where we can say, all right, 23, 24, a complete snapshot. What does 24, 25 look like? In a couple weeks, you'll see the 3 signs we post around every school and throughout the community of slow down buses. School starts next week. Watch out for kids. Hopefully, we see a decrease in that. So I'll report back throughout the year and let you know how that looks. I guess the last thing in terms of talking about our bus stops, excuse me, I lost my place here. The big thing that we have is that when we make stops, elementary aged kids can be expected to walk up to a half mile to their designated stop, and grades 7, 12 up to 3/4 of a mile. It's very rare that a student is going to walk that far. It occasionally does happen, but hardly not that often, if at all. But for a student who's in the 3rd grade to walk a 1/4 mile, that happens sometimes, right? We have big neighborhoods. We try to create stops that serve the greatest good. We are always operating against the clock. We have a limited number of minutes to navigate all of our subdivisions, to provide transportation for, all the students who are eligible. So we strategically, and when I say we, it's Dousman Transport. They've been operating collectively since the 40s as an operation in our community previously with Hank's Transportation to create they know the neighborhoods better than anyone. I'm confident in saying that. We have these rules. Some parents aren't going to like their stops. I will, again, answer those using these criteria that I'm sharing right now to explain the reason why. And if they really don't like my decision, they'll visit, okay? But this is the time of year. I just want to kind of bring this back and let you know this is how we're doing things, and then I'll be answering any concerns that parents might have. If there's a true safety hazard, I'll take care of it. If somebody just really doesn't like how far they have to walk, it's Wisconsin. There's always going to be snow on the ground in December, right? It's going to be dark out in the winter, right? It's things that we can't control. If there's a young teenager that lives in a neighborhood that might drive too fast for their liking, you have to call the police. We can't always do driveway pickup. We would never have enough time to pick up all the kids each and every day. Okay? All right, any questions on that? It's the fun time of year here, guys. Buckle in. No pun intended. All right, robotics lease. Just bringing it to your attention that we are in the second year of the 2-year lease in the industrial park for the Team 930. They are really grateful. They're doing a great job. They have inquired to see, as their lease expires at the end of January of 2025, could they do an 18 or 30-month extension? You don't need to answer it right now in August, but soon they'd like to know the owners of the building are happy. They would like to continue the relationship. They're looking for an 18-month or 30-month extension by getting off the current 12, 24, 12-month cycle. The extra 6 months would let them finish their next competition season and kind of just give them a little stability. So something for you guys to think about, that they would like to continue the partnership they've created.
I have a question. Have they changed their price at all if we do a long-term lease with them?
I will inquire with the owner about that. Currently, yeah, we pay half of the $2,400 a month. Okay. Works out to be $14,400 for them and for us in the partnership there.
I think it's amazing how much money those kids raise.
It is. I was more impressed just with what those robots do, but all the other business activity they have it's impressive. Okay. All right, then I'll move on then to the referendum presentation here. So bear with me here. All right, Dr. Cook, are we tag teaming this here? We got Kurt. Go ahead, I'll give that to you here.
Yeah, so we have Kurt Wiebelhaus joining us this evening. We've also got members of our team in the audience. And as we presented a couple weeks ago, just where we were at, had an opportunity to review the community survey, and then really, what process we went through, what the financing was. And so we're going to rehash some of those items tonight, just to keep them fresh in everybody's mind. But then we are seeking a discussion with the board as if this is something we want to pursue. Do we want to pursue a referendum for November of '24, or is it time to put that on hold and then look at a future date when we would come back? Because we know that the need is there. So, Tom? So yeah, so tonight, we need to have, from the board, we need to know, is this something that we want to move on with? We would have to have a formal resolution adoption prior to August 27th. So if we were to have that, our next school board meeting is on the 26th. We would have to look to schedule a potential another meeting, emergency meeting next week for the singular purpose of adopting those resolutions. Some other dates, and we talked about these a couple weeks ago, April of '25, April of '26, and November of '26, should the decision be made tonight to hold. We do have some future dates coming up. There is no November '25 election that we would be eligible to put this on the ballot for. So As we talked about from the survey, we had 1,300 more, or I'm sorry, yeah, 1,300 more responses, so 4,444 total this time, which is great. We really appreciate the feedback from the community. We had a 27% response rate, which again was excellent when it comes down to these community surveys in comparison to 3,172 when we did this a year ago. The feedback that we had from the survey, when you considered our parents' feedback, staff feedback, and then the group that we call non-parents, non-staff, was that after the math is run, there's 51% support right now for us to go forward and ask another referendum question for the middle school.
What was the one that, what was the support level for the one that failed?
53.5. So we have 2.5% less support on this survey. When you look at the reliability of it and the margin of error on the last survey was higher because we had fewer responses. So if you go forward, if you look at the strength, so among our parents, the 23 question was in light blue, the 24 question is in dark blue. You can see that the support from our parents is stronger. It's the definitely yes. We have more definitely yes than we did last time, but we still have a similar amount of support. If you go down into the definitely no and the probably, no problem. If you go into the definitely no and probably no, those stayed very similar between the two, 2% definitely no in 24 versus in 23. If you go forward, Tom, thank you. Our community support, again, we saw a stronger definitely yes response than we did, between 24 and 23. And the definitely no among our community members, again, these are the non-parents, non-staff, was very similar at 32 and 33%. So going back to why we got here, Tom, do you want to cover this one?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we talked about this last time, but it's worth reiterating here briefly. So again, when we talked about why are we pursuing a new middle school, first off, capacity. We don't have empty classrooms in our elementary schools or middle school whatsoever at this point. So we learned about that. We took school board back when we had a finance and facilities meeting for anybody that's been on the board here for a little while. Craig, you might remember those. We visited each and every school. We made the rounds, and our rooms are used. By and large, we're turning closets into our office space. We're using vestibules. We're using hallways. We're using everything we have. That was a major reason. So just capacity alone. Enrollment projections, we took a look at a long-range enrollment projection that forecasted out to the year 2035. And the evidence that we had based on potential neighborhood developments, housing turnover, basically all indicators of what could impact student enrollment in our schools is that we would have an increase of 350 resident students by the year 2035. Parkview Middle School is an old building. It has a lot of capital maintenance. So just in the next 10 years, there's about $7.5 million to keep that building, which was built in 1954, current. And just working, having heat work, having chillers work to keep the schools cool, to keep the building dry, and have the roofs working as they need to work, to replace the parking lots, all those things. But even when you sink $7.5 million in there, it's still a 1954 building with 1954 class sizes, which if you're building a new school today, you're not building classrooms as they are. So even investing that money into the middle school doesn't change the outdated and small classrooms. And then we looked at throughout the entire district, our tech ed spaces, our 4K program. Our 4K program, more and more, we have to self-rely and minimize our reliance on our 4K community partners. So once upon a time, we had 6 community partners. We're down to 3. So when those 4K programs, for example, at Little Lambs, which was on Main Street here in Mukwonago, when they no longer operated, we have to take that program back in-house. So while there might be some enrollment declining, we are still needing more classrooms to bring our own programs back in-house, and the 4K program is an example of that. And then we just have a lot of one-on-one needs, you know, for speech therapy, special education, academic interventions, things of that nature, to deliver the ways that we reach kids in this time of providing education. We need space, all right? And then lastly, we looked at grade level configurations. So we delivered an academic, I should say an administrative recommendation. If we were asked, where is sixth grade academically best suited? It's in a middle school setting. So for, while that's not universally viewed that way, I guess in terms of how parents feel, are they ready for their sixth grader to go to school with seventh and eighth graders? From an academic lens, the way that curriculum is packaged and taught to students, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade together is the best fit for the academic development of a student. The return on investment, what are we talking about when we say that? It's providing world language exposure to sixth graders, which they're not getting now. Higher level mathematics courses for when they advance beyond the standard sixth grade level. CTE course offerings that they can't get at their elementary schools now, along with band, music, orchestra, you know, co-curricular, extracurricular activities. It's the entire school day that there's a lot of things embedded in that we could do better for those sixth graders. And really, you know, when we talk about middle school right now, you know, seventh graders now, one year they come, the next year they go. They're stopping by for a quick cup of milk, and they're moving on to the high school. So when you really think about the impact that Luke Spielman and his staff can provide, you're asking them to do a really heavy lift at a really critical time of each of their lives, and they don't get them very long. So we really believe in that 6th, 7th, 8th grade configuration for a number of reasons. All right, so we feel that ultimately, you know, when we talk about how long of a solution is this is really a long-term solution. If we were to move in this direction of building a new 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school building, you know, you can call it a generational solution. This is going to provide for decades and decades of a need and provide a solution to meet any need that might arise, to address current and any future space needs that might come up. So this isn't just, hey, we're looking 10 years out. We're not just looking to 2035. You know, we're looking to 2055. So this is a very long-term solution to our district's needs. Talking about the financial elements of this right now. So, you know, the graph on the left goes from 1995 to current times, and those are the long-range municipal bond interest rates over the past 30 years. And that dotted line you can see is the long-term average during this time. So we are right now currently at that long-term average. So on the far left-hand side of that, interest rates, you know, in 1995 were in the 6s. That's pretty high, right? Recently, they have gone higher, but right now they are starting to come back to about 4.25. Okay, so in a long-term sense, how are interest rates? They're at the average. Okay. When we talk about loaning $89.1 million, again, this is like a mortgage, and Vito, you had asked some questions, so we're going to start to answer those right now. Interest rates, you know, we're always forecasting ahead, so you know, if we were to move forward, there would be a November referendum. If it were successful, then we look to lock in interest rates sometime, you know, shortly after the referendum. So we don't know what they're going to be in November. A lot of things can happen between now and November, yeah? So that being said, you know, the markets respond to everything that happens. So right now we had been messaging and planning with a 4.75% interest rate. So you can see on that table there that would, to borrow $89.1 million, paying that back over the course of 20 or 21 years, there's $57 million of interest spaced out over that time. However, interest rates as of August 1st were at 4.25. So we plan conservatively. We lift the interest rate a little bit higher so we don't overpromise and then underdeliver. But you know, we're using 4.75 as our internal assumption, but 4.25 is the reality today. So if that were to take place, our interest costs would drop by $6 million. Okay? If interest rates were to fall further between now and whenever interest rates were finalized and we locked in, let's say they dropped to 3.75, we would drop to $45 million of interest repayments over 20 years. And then that would be 12 million less than the baseline of 4.75%. Okay, we got more coming here, Vito, so I know I'll get to your question here. As we take a look at what's, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger here. This is an important slide here. If we take a look, we're currently levying about $6.6 million for debt. So we're ultimately paying off 2 years at a time, and I'll show you that in graphic form in just a second. But if we were to delay this project, say for 2 years, and I say 2 years because a lot of people had asked, well, maybe once you pay off the high school debt, that would be a better time to ask. So if we just use that feedback and present this here, the cost of an $89.1 million project now versus delaying it in 2 years is about $6 million. So like anything in the world, the cost will grow over time. That's inflation, right? It's not going to go away. So you can see the various annual payments. So again, like a mortgage, whether you're paying $1,000 or $2,000 a month to pay back your mortgage, the school district has their own mortgage when a referendum takes place and passes. So if we use the 4.25% scenario and it were to pass now, we'd have an annual payment of $7.1 million. So we're currently paying about $6.6 million. This would go up to $7.1 million. So there would be an increase. If we had a 4.25% interest rate here and we delayed it for 2 years and we borrowed $95.9 million, then we'd be up to $7.4 million. So payments would increase by delaying it for 2 years. The annual payment would increase by about $300,000 a year, adding about $6 million of additional cost altogether. Okay? So in the sense of, when is it cheapest? It's now. That's the reality of some of the finances. That's a piece, not all of this consideration, but it is a piece of this consideration here. All right, so now, Vito, I think I'm going to get to your questions here. There's 3 graphs going on here, and I'll explain these here for you real quick. I know the stuff in gray is the original referendum estimate. So I'm going to come up to the screen. Joe, do you want to? All right, so the gray bars is the original referendum estimate. So we're talking about the old high school debt. That's a part of this because as some debt expires and new debt potentially might come on, we need to show the whole 20-year snapshot. So we're going from 2017 all the way out to 2037. The gray bars represent the information we communicated to the community. We're saying, if you pass this, this is what we anticipate, okay? Once the referendum passed and was approved, we were able to lock in the interest rates, and we went to the turquoise bars. So you could see, as we kind of go out into the future, that we were planning for the gray bars, but once we locked in on a lower interest rate, the reality was much less, okay? So the turquoise bars is what our actual payment stream was. The purple bars represent what we did in terms of a levy and a payment. So you can see here that we were making our steady payments for the first 4 years. And then in 2021, all right, the 2020-21 school year, this year you can see that we increased our levy and said we are going to begin to pay this debt more quickly. We are defeasing debt, which is a way to say we're basically paying 2 years at once. That was our stride, okay? So you can see a bigger levy, a bigger levy. Our operating levy went way down that year, which allowed for us to lift this levy and pay 3 years at once, which we just did this past May, or a couple months ago. We paid off 3 years of debt, and then we assumed when our operating levy went back to normal, we adjusted this accordingly. The light purple here represents, here's where I think we're gonna go. So if we just pause the conversation about a new referendum right now, we'll make this levy this year, one more next year, a smaller one in the fall of 26, and we're done. So we're on path. When you really look at it, we thought we were going to pay till 2037. We locked in till 2036, and we're going to go to 2027. So we're getting this thing done in half the time, okay?
Tom, how much have we saved in interest by doing it this way?
In the tens of millions. Like, I say that with the refinancing that we've done. the rates we locked in at versus what we communicated to the community, we've saved. I can answer that more specifically, and I'll bring that next meeting. I have all graphs here, and I bring the tables here. I apologize for that. Yeah, I know. All right, so again, this is the same thing that we just talked about, just unpacked. This, again, this is showing you the gray bars is what we planned and communicated, and then the turquoise represents what we locked in at. So you can see that that kind of relates to what we're talking about right now in terms of we're planning for 4.75, but rates are actually at 4.25. So we're communicating like the gray stuff to the community now, but if we were to lock in at 4.25, it'd be less, right? We're just trying to be conservative in what we're doing. Next slide, please. Again, so now this is just, we're unpacking. Again, here where the turquoise, this is our anticipated payment pattern there for our 20-year payback. But you can see that 2 years of payments, 2 years of payments, 3 years of payments, 2 years of payments. We'll be done with this in 3 more levies. The levy we make this October, next October, and the one after. So then we'll go to one more slide here. Okay. If the next if this referendum were to be approved and the voters pass this, then what would happen ultimately? So we've talked about the light purple bars. That's where I think we're headed. All things being, that's where I think we're going to head. All this stuff would ultimately go away, and we'd make one lift, so that $6.6 million annual levy becomes 7.1 or 7.4 based on interest rates. We lift it, and then we ride it out. So in a way, is what we're asking the community is, this is our kind of this level of purple right here for the most part. That's our current standard. Could we keep that standard going forward, but also lift it just a little more for the sake of a brand new building that we think is something that's, again, a 50-year solution, a long-term solution.
And that's with a 0.5% interest rate cushion in there, correct?
Yes, yep. So if it was, this is a 4.75%, those yellow bars represent 4.75. If it became 4.25, then those yellow bars would drop down.
$24 per 100,000.
Yep, this is what the 24 right now is what you're seeing. Yep.
And when would the rate get locked in? So like if it passed the referendum, when would it get locked in?
There's a little bit of time. When you look at the work that needs to be done, there's no need to borrow money and start accruing interest when your costs are still like 12, 18 months out. So there's definitely a timing element that takes place. Typically, we're going to make 2 borrows, one at $10 million, and then the rest. The $10 million borrow or less is done that way because banks can competitively bid on things that are $10 million or less, which gives us lower interest rates when there's more bidders. So we typically borrow $10 million and then everything else, and we time that up. As the architects plan, they have their design phase. It takes 12 months. You don't need to buy materials, during that time, so there's no need to borrow money and start accruing interest costs. So you just kind of wait. But then you also have that balancing act of, well, I think this is as low as interest rates are going to go, so let's lock in now. And it's a little bit of artwork there, along with some science in that too. So it depends, Jake. I'm not giving you an answer, but it depends on things that we all pay. The things we pay attention to, several variables.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Vito, I don't know. I'm coming back to your question, trying to figure out what it actually was now. What?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Is it legal for us to take the extra money from the levy and save it for the referendum cost?
Yes. When you levy $6.6 million to pay off referendum debt, you could direct me to say, go buy textbooks with that money. And I'd say, no, I can't do that, school board. It's just there's certain things that are legal, and I just, as long as we pay off that money is used to pay off debt that the voters approve, it's okay. So you could, and we talked about this before, if we make a levy onto the community, do you want to pay off your 1.9% interest or your 4.25% interest? Typically, your 4.25% interest is financially advantageous. So if we get to that point, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
If it's advantageous to the taxpayer, which all 9 of you are, so am I, so is Dr. Cook, we like to do smart things, you know, as best we can. So if that's the right play, it's what we do.
Do we have to incur the debt first, or can we just borrow less money? So if we need 89 million, we levy an extra 6 million just for easy math, can we only borrow 83 million and use the 6 million, or do we?
You can borrow less. So the community gives you the permission based on the way that the question is written, up to 89.1 million. You can borrow less.
Can we use the extra 6 million to be able to borrow less? Basically, do we have to incur the cost to just go through the money swap to pay it off early?
You could do that, but I'd say I'd say we'd have to take a longer look at that. You could do that. I'd take a longer look at that, though, before I said, hey, that's the right thing to do. I got to think about that more and run the numbers. But yes, it's a possibility. Okay.
But we do still have to continue to make payments, right?
What's that?
We still have to continue to make the payments?
Well, you don't have to, but you should. You don't want to default on your...
I'm just...
No, yes,
Okay.
yes.
He's saying just take the 6 million.
You could drop the tax levy real low, but we're going to default, and we'll never borrow money again, Eric. I know you're not saying that. I know you're not.
No, we don't have to make the payments. So we can save that money because it's an extra payment. The extra 6 million is on top of our existing payments that we're making.
So if you levy $6 million this fall, the minimum payment throughout the 24-25 school year is $3 million. So you can levy the 6, pay the 3, and keep the remaining 3 to say, let's see what happens. It might be better to use that extra $3 million to pay off higher interest debt. Am I answering your question like that?
100%, thank you.
Cool, Eric? All right. So again, just in terms of like we talked about, you know, $7.1 or $7.4 million of annual levies, in in a mill rate sense, what our current rates of taxation to pay off our long-term debts is $1.21. So if you take the fair market value of your house, divide it by 1,000, and multiply it by $1.21, that's how much each taxpayer is paying to pay off our debts associated with Mukwonago High School at the moment. If this referendum were to pass, it would go up 24 cents to $1.45. And you can kind of see as property values grow and our community grows, it is a little bit less over time.
24 cents is 240 bucks.
Next slide. Yep, here we go. I got that right. Nope, one more down here. So it's for a $100,000 house or in multiples of 100,000. There's not too many $100,000 houses in our district, but just for easier math, it's $24 per 100,000 of a house's value. If you have $1 million house, the annual increase over our current tax rates is an additional $240. Okay, or in a monthly sense, you can see the math there. It's $2 a month for $100,000 of a house's value. Okay.
I always found it interesting, the value of Mukwonago Area School District. What is that compared to last year?
We've grown in the double digits for the last 2 or 3 calendar years. It was in the 14% recently. I think it went down to 10. And we'll have the final growth numbers here in October. Actually, we have those in right now, and I think it's still in the 7s. It's still high. So if you own a house in Mukwonago, the value of it's going up significantly. Destination District, Craig, people want to move in here, and there's high demand for it. Okay. Okay, so that's the financing piece there. So here's the question here. I'll pass this back to you, but this is the question that we have proposed for your consideration.
Yeah, so if the board would like to go to referendum, the referendum question has to be spelled out. And so this was some of the discussion that Tom had before, but everybody can read, but I will read it. Shall the Mukwonago Area School District and Waukesha and Walworth counties be authorized to issue pursuant to Chapter 67 of the Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $89.1 million for the public purpose of paying the cost of a school building and facility improvement projects consisting of construction of an addition and renovations to the Parkview Middle School building and demolition of a portion of the existing building, district-wide capital maintenance, infrastructure and site improvements, and acquisition of furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. So that would be the question then that would appear on the ballot in November, if that's the direction we are going to go.
I try to steal it from you.
No, you're good, you're good.
Sorry.
So again,
So, question or statement? So, with the last referendum the referendum was defeated.
Yep.
I think the voters are saying, hey, let's take a break. We have high inflation. We have a reassessment across the whole MASD. We had a safety referendum in town of Mukwonago, village of Mukwonago. I think Mike Big Ben is going to do Big Ben Vernon going to do a referendum on 3 new buildings, correct?
Vernon, yes.
Vernon, thank you. I've been on the fence. We definitely need to do something with Parkview. But I believe the last survey was said we should be able to pass this, and we didn't. And this latest survey says we're definitely probably not going to pass it. I think our voters have said let's take a break. I mean, my opinion is to maybe take a break until November of '26 and see what election year, right? Let's hope the economy gets better. Maybe interest rates are going to be I understand what you're saying. To build a building in 2 years is going to cost more. Maybe the interest rates will be down low enough where it won't cost more. But my opinion is that we probably should hold off. Vito?
I guess the only thing we can do right now is say our opinions, because it's all that we really have at this point. So where I stand on the whole thing is I'm one of the strongly agrees with that we should do it. I think it's a really good idea. I think there's so many benefits for the community and a number of reasons, but I just don't think we did a great job messaging it. I know when I try to do my best not to speak on social media because it usually just gets me in trouble. But when these things come up in on the social media pages and on Facebook and stuff like that, I usually just leave it alone to try to avoid getting into it or for whatever reason. But I'm probably going to stop doing that, and I'm going to engage in those things because I think the reasons I have for being for it matter, and people should be able to read it. I don't think we have got enough of the information out to the general public, and that's why it shows in the responses. I tend to agree with Craig. I don't think that I have no interest in doing anything that's not going to pass. So if we're just going to look like we just keep shoving something down people's throats, I think we need to take the time to message it and get out there and get the word out there so that when it does come up and we do it, it's going to pass and it makes sense because that's what the people want and they understand why it makes sense for us to do.
Vito, how would you message it differently?
Well, one thing we have to find a way to get people to understand what our costs are going to be incurred. In the next 10 years, we have $7 million that we're going to waste on a building that is going to get knocked down sooner or later. So before that happens, we get the word out as to what's going to be happening. I think I go to my kids, and what they did, they commonly referred to that place as the dungeon. Every time we walk, we would just drive by it, and my daughter would go, "Oh, the dungeon." She disliked it very much. Every time you go in there, it's very uncomfortable. The heating system isn't great. The air conditioning is terrible, if non-existent. So I'm not an expert at getting the word out, but I know that there's a lot of things there, and if we can figure out how to get together and get the word out, I think that's our best bet to make this work.
Crosby?
I think the most challenging part of messaging is reaching the purple people, as we call them on the survey, because although, yes, our school families said we support it more, although a little bit of the purple people said definitely yes, more purple people also said definitely no. So we're splitting the purple people even more. So I agree with you that messaging is very important. My thought is the majority of the people who fit into that category are worried about taxes and education. I think a couple of the things that would be very important to highlight is the academic opportunities for sixth graders being brought into the middle school. We talk about CTE, and parent families, school families, they know what that is. Standard purple people, they have no idea what that is. They don't know what that means. But the majority of those people likely support, heavily support tech ed. They just don't know what CTE is. So when we're talking about messaging, I think that's one of the things that we really have to emphasize are academic opportunities and what is this going to cost you? Because that, and I am a purple person, and I'm just going to speak, I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm just saying, as somebody who does not have a kid in the district, those would be the two things that I care about the most. Because even though I don't use the district, I still care about the education that these kids are getting. So how do we message that? What's the best way to message? How much is it going to cost me? And what does it do for these kids' education?
I think a good thing for a good road for us to go down is we have to be able to talk about how it does affect the purple people. The reality is people vote for what matters to them. What I've been thinking about during this process is how does it affect them? And I don't think people are understanding, or they're looking really deep into the situation, because when I was thinking about how does it affect people, it boils down to the people coming into the community. You're right, we are a destination district. And when thinking about that, the building does matter. You hear people talk about that you can educate kids in a concrete box, and that's just not real. The reality of that is they do have options. You go to Arrowhead and look at their schools and what they have going on there, and that's exciting. Kids want to go there because of all the extra stuff that they have there in their gyms and their facilities, and all these things matter to people. So if like it or not, we are in competition. We're in competition for people to come into our district, and if we want good people to come in, we have to have good stuff for them to come to. Without having high quality buildings and a really nice environment for them to send their kids to, who wants to send their kid to the dungeon? Who's excited about that? If I'd have known about it, I'd have thought twice. So the reality is the building does matter. It may not matter to the people not in our district or the people, some of the loudest voices, but it does matter to the people that are coming into the district, and they have options. They have options of Heartland, East Troy, all these other places, and if their stuff is nicer than ours, Muskego's got a really nice facility they just built. So that's our competition. If we want the good people to come here, we have to have good stuff for them to come to. We have to spend the money to do it. That's one of the messages I would try to get out there.
Vito, I agree. I also believe that a strong school system, a strong school district, is going to help property values exponentially. I think that's a fair statement, correct, Doctor?
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt.
Can I add a couple things here, if you don't mind? When our taxes, once we get to this point in time, the 26, 27 year, we make this last smaller levy. Once the purple stuff, everything's paid off, if there's no new debt, we will become the lowest taxing entity from a K-12 perspective, all of southeast Wisconsin. So there's 39 school districts in that area, and we will be 25% lower than second last place. I would argue, again, it's always a balancing act of what, the values of the community and the investment that it requires. There may come a time when you say, wow, the investment's really, really, really light, really light. You kind of get what you pay for at times. So if we're the least taxing entity for K-12 and we have things that are slipping and buildings that are failing, that will become a very crucial time. In 2026, 2027, that's going to become important, I think. That once the tax levy falls and it's paid off, that seems like it could be a proper time to add debt at that time. As some debt expires, new debt could come on to replace it, and we're still we're still in the bottom 20% of all K-12 school districts, so we could still maintain that and still be a low taxing entity, but still have the things you need to meet your needs. One other thing I just want to quickly, I just have a couple slides and I will go quick here. I didn't mean to talk this much. At June 5th, we had a community informational session. There's just a couple things about reassessment that I just want to highlight here because I know there's a couple concerns about that. All right? All right, so reassessments, I'm going to go back up. Okay, every 5 years, as it says at the bottom here, Wisconsin law requires municipalities to reassess their properties, okay? Because those assessed values have to be within 10% of their actual value that you would anticipate. What would this house get if we put it for sale? So every house has an assessed value, but for tax purposes, then there's a market adjustment that comes from the Department of Revenue. And the Department of Revenue will say, okay, Village of Mukwonago, the last time you assessed your properties was in 2019. It's been 5 years, and your houses are selling for 50% more than what their assessed values are. There's a lot of market changes that are taking place. So the assessed value gets a market adjustment, and that becomes the equalized value. The equalized value accounts for all things. Maybe the assessor did a poor job. Maybe market conditions are really, really good. But ultimately, every assessed value gets a market adjustment to bring it to a market value or an equalized value. Okay? So when the assessed value is really off or it's old and dated, the assessed value needs to be updated here. Can we go to the next slide? So for example, go on down. There we go. So a house that's $260,000, it needs a market adjustment, so that $260,000 was the assessed value in 2019. All right, this is actually one of our school board members' houses. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but this is us, all right? This is us. The house values, the market adjustment said, hey, houses are selling for 56% higher in that town or that village. So while the assessor 5 years ago said that's what it's worth, everything's selling for 56%. So all houses in this municipality take their assessed value, and then they get they get the market adjustment upwards. So that house has really got a market value of $406,500. So a lot of people said, holy cow, like my house I got assessed 56% higher. So every 5 years, if the assessor got it perfectly right, there would be no market adjustment. Right? The assessor nailed it. That's not always the case. So sometimes, again, for a variety of reasons here. So we know that the village and the town had assessments that just took place here, and they went up significantly. So people are fearing that, oh, my taxes are going to go up 40, 50, 60%. And that is not the case.
Well, they might travel, they might follow.
They could. Generally, I'm going to speak generally here, okay? So like I don't want to say, hey, you said this, Tom. So let's just go to the next slide if you don't mind here. So in the village of Mukwonago, all right, in the village, the average increase was 47.5%. So 47.5% is the average. If your house increased less than 47.5%, it's likely your taxes will go down. If your property value increased more than 47.5%, it's likely your taxes may go up. So if your house went up 47.5%, if anyone said my taxes are going to go up 47.5%, that is wrong. All things equal, it stays flat. Okay? Can we go to the next slide? So 3 scenarios for the village of Mukwonago. All right, there's a house goes up 30%, 47.5%, or 70%. If a house goes up 30%, they increased, but by less than the average. So the tax bill at a $6.20 mill rate would be a $620 tax bill at $100,000. It goes up 30% to $130,000. Taxes would go down. They increased, but by less than average. A house that's worth $100,000 goes up 47.5% to $147,500. The tax bill stays the same. A house that goes up 70%, the tax bill would go up. So it's really relative to the average of what the impact the reassessment is, okay? So again, if our levy last year was $32 million, if we drop it by 0.5%, these things, generally speaking, are going to hold true, okay? The only way for taxes to go up 47.5% is if you added a 3-car garage and your house just got way bigger, like you did a lot of work to it, or you take that $32 million annual levy and you increase it to $40 million. As long as you're levying about $32 million, things are going to stay calm and consistent, okay? In the village of the town of Mukwonago, the average increase was 58%. So really, it's the same thing. It's the same story plays out town to town, village to village, okay? So just want to point that out. We talked about this at June 5th. Nobody really felt like coming out that night to hear me talk. Can you believe that? But it's worth repeating, okay? So last slide then is just the, you can see the reassessments when they all took place here. So all those towns, villages are in the school district, Mukwonago Area School District. So for the most part, everyone's had it done within the last 5 years. These entities probably aren't going to be reassessing anytime soon. Maybe by 2027, the cycle will begin again. But for the most part, things should stay calm now.
Thanks, Tom.
See, that slide is probably the biggest fear I hear from residents.
I understand it. I mean, who really understands all this stuff? Like, I had to read this stuff. I didn't want to. But there it is. So now people can know. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Jake?
So I just wanted to make some comments here. So, you know, the referendum was obviously rejected in April.
Jake, speak in the microphone, please.
With that, one of the things that I wanted to see in order to come back was something that was fundamentally different. And I feel that this is, both from an overall cost perspective and also the tax implications with new interest rates that we have right now, you know, that sort of thing. I think when I look at the survey, sure, the response rate, the approval rate is like 2% lower than we saw the last time around, but some other factors to consider. We have the higher response rate. I think it was like 30% more, which reduces that margin of error, but also there's going to be pretty big turnout, I would imagine, in this upcoming election, a lot more than we saw in April. And for me, you know, I think that matters, and I think we should listen to it, and you know, I would be okay with moving forward with this, because I think, you know, with those factors that I just mentioned, but also I find comfort knowing that the people will be making the final call. I mean, what we're looking at doing is giving people an opportunity at a much higher turnout election, most likely, to say yes or no. So that's kind of where I stand on this.
Eric?
I'm with Vito, with the strongly agree. I had a kid who went there. You know, he's going to be a freshman this year. And when Mike and I did our walkthroughs of some of the schools, I mean, it was pretty eye-opening to see some of the learning areas that were being transitioned. You know, the old locker rooms, and they got industrial bookshelves and stuff on the side, and then they're putting up curtains to make it a decent-looking place with a table in the middle, and that's where some of the kids are learning. I found that in a few different schools, also in the middle school. Now, I don't know, is there a way to do like an open house to where we can get some of these purple people to come in and do a tour of the school and then check it out and say, hey, this is where some of our kids are learning?
Yeah, so yes, it's possible to do an open house. I think one of the things, you know, one of the reasons why we're back with you tonight and why we went from an April no vote to a summer survey was we heard a lot of the feedback, but one of the things that we heard when we were presenting up to the April vote was, I didn't know you were doing this until I got, and people would pull out one of the variety of postcards that we pulled out. And so the reason to come back and ask that question again was because we knew we had a level of community engagement. So we thought that we would get better survey feedback, by asking that. To getting people in, yes, we can get people in. We can open the school up. We can have the school open during the day where we would, scan people in and take them through, on tours. But that is going to take a level of engagement from people who want. I was fortunate enough to walk through Parkview at the end of the school year with a citizen who had reached out with some questions and concerns. We had a very nice visit. We spent about 2.5 hours together walking through the school. Luke joined us on that tour. I think it really did allow for a different perspective for that individual. And those opportunities are there. But it is a matter of getting people who want to come into the door and see. one of the things that Tom and I had talked about quite a bit in reflection, we did the community presentations. We met with PTOs, we met with church groups, we met with all of the municipalities with the exception of the town of Mukwonago. We presented and presented and presented, and we found that we maybe get 10 to 15 people, who would come to those. And so we increased our frequency. I think by the end of it, we did 35 or 36 presentations, which was good. We had great questions. We tried to address those questions in the presentation. But having that engagement, that is the most important thing for us is if we're going to pursue this, having people who are going to say this is the right project for us to do, be willing to share that information, and then a community that's engaged in coming and seeing what we have to offer. We would love to be able to take the building on the tour with us, but that's not possible. So for individuals to see it, it's important to bring them in. And I think like Vito had mentioned, it's not that you do something to keep up with the Joneses, but I think it's really good for us to keep into perspective what some communities have done at the middle level for learning experiences for their students and have the opportunity to go around and see those schools as well. Because we do sit in stark comparison to what some of our neighbors have done. And I think that's important for people to see and take in as well as part of this discussion.
Gooch? Yeah, I think timing is everything, right? I'd love to be able to have a new school. I'd love to be able to vote for this right now. But people are hurting. Taxes are going up. And it's not just what the school tax portion will be. It'll be maybe in the village of Vernon if they pass a referendum, and so on and so forth. So I'm concerned that coming back right away with another referendum, more of the purple people, so to speak, may say, there they go again. They're just trying to keep going and going and going until they get something passed. There's a whole bunch of people that would love to see it pass, obviously, but I think it lost by about 8% last time. It was a pretty significant loss. So maybe timing-wise, it's better to take a breath and not put it on this next ballot. That's how I'm trying to struggle with this. Because I think if we give them a breath and not put it on there, and then the economy might get better or it might get worse, but in either way, if it goes on a year later, they'll have a better understanding of to vote yes or no. So right now I'm leaning, I don't think we should do another ballot or another referendum.
I would just offer to extend on that. If that's the route that the board decides to go, I just think it's important that it's understood that the buildings is still there. It's still built in 1954. It still has needs. So while delaying might be the ultimate choice that the board ultimately takes, it's important that we still communicate the need is still there. If this is something that gets delayed a little bit, I'm confident that we could probably keep that building going, However, it doesn't, the building is still has its needs. Those needs aren't going away anywhere. So that would be incumbent upon us, whoever the school board administration is, to continue to communicate what the needs are. They didn't just magically go away. But if the timing is what you all think there, like that makes sense, we would just have to do some work between now and whatever that next right time might be.
Gail?
Okay. Well, I'm all for putting it on this fall on the ballot. I speak as a parent, an educator, a longtime community member, a person on a fixed income now. I've all those parts of life and never having a lot, but education is core to a society, to life, and we are very fortunate. No matter where we're at in Mukwonago or around here, we have a lot, and different levels, but we do have a lot compared to the world. And to not put into your future of your community or your society to make it the best it can be, I just think nothing else, that's most important. So when I went through the buildings and being here, I know what a struggle it was for my kids, how hard it was at Prairie View. I know how hard it is for the teachers. there's behavior issues because of it, the focus cannot, isn't there, there's safety issues, and all those things just keep growing with not addressing the need. And we say we really value education. We say this is a place of destination. We love this community. We need to put into it, and we do need to sell it. I mean, I know the middle school kids will benefit, but those little 4Kers need to be in the buildings too. They need to be part of their elementary school. And when you see people trying to work with a child on speech and language and on math, and they've got a curtain between them, and they're trying to get these little guys doing that, or you think of just something happening and getting people safely out of a building or to different places. And I'm just like, I look at it and I'm like, how many people go through a drive-through? You go on vacations, you do other stuff, and I don't know, the school is really important. It's the heart of the community. It's the heart of who we are. And if we don't do the best for our kids, then who are we? So I'm very much for I'm always that way with everything. I'm quiet, but I'm a risk taker. This is an important risk. I'm not a gambler, but I'm a risk taker, and this is an important one. So I just say go for it. And it's a big turnout this fall, and I mean, there's always going to be people not wanting to do it no matter what. And I'd be more than happy to take anybody, talk to them from the teacher perspective, parent. I've lived here a long time. I've seen it in all different ways, and I think bringing out not just the cost, but you think of yourself or your kids and being in that setting. I mean, it can feel, my kids thought it was like a prison, the environment, and that was back in the 80s and 90s. So, and we do, I mean, it's choice. So you do have to think of your neighbors, your schools around you, and the communities and what they are offering. And parents very easily will be like, well, I'll just put my kid there. I'll take them there because, it provides what they need. And we have got, it also, I think, retaining teachers. We want the best. We have wonderful, giving teachers that put their heart and soul, they're passionate about it. And I think if we want to keep that too, I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those family projects, you got to do it.
Well said, Gail.
Gail, you're hired as our PR person.
Right? I want to add on, like.
Let me just say, Gail and I agree 100%. Like the high school, everyone that goes through high school is the wow factor is pretty amazing. Kurt, you haven't said much, but the high school, the wow factor is pretty amazing.
It is. I was fortunate to give tours to the WASBO group, so statewide. Other schools come to the building, and it was, so I did a presentation and tour on what it was to what it is now, and it was fun because it was pretty bad before. I mean, the small classroom.
Kind of like Parkview is.
Yeah. So, yeah, just, I mean, a little perspective that I have, I was on staff here, right? I've been very involved. I was very involved in the high school project, and after that project, I went to work for other school districts doing facility referendums, but still work with Mukwonago, and been very involved in this process. And one of the things, I wrote an article for school districts that was published in the Wisconsin School News, and one of the articles was top 3 referendum mistakes that school districts make. And one of those was not following the survey results. Well, if you think about our survey results, right, we were very unfortunate that our last set of surveys did not predict what the expectation was. 95% accuracy is what school perception said they have, right? So we unfortunately were in that 5% that didn't, but it's the best that we have as far as statistically to go off of. And so now we're at 51%. It's a much easier decision if it was 61%, but we're at 51%. But I think the purpose of that article was more so for boards that were considering going and it wasn't being supported, but I think it's applicable in this case too, where the community is saying, 51% of the community is saying go. You know, so I think that's applicable. But I would say this as a secondary, and it's echoing many things that you said, this group has said. If we do decide to go, we need to be all in. We need to be from the core admin team that's working on this, putting the energy in to get the information out, right? We all know the needs of Parkview and their real needs, and that's why this is a focus of this project. You go back to 2017 when that facility study was done for Parkview, and then 2021, the people that were on the board, that's when we started talking about this master plan for the district. Ultimately, it came down to our biggest priority is Parkview, and that's where we're at. But so the core team that's working on this project needs to spend the time getting the information campaign out. You as a board, if we're in on this, if we're going to move forward on this, it's taking and getting the information out, the needs, the facts of the project out. And if, in my mind, if those needs can be communicated well through everybody that's involved, correcting the false information that's out there, if that can be done, I think we'll be successful. But it is a two-piece thing, right? Following the survey, and there's work involved to make sure we're communicating those needs to the community.
I think that's where we got beat up really bad, was social media, and the district didn't have presence. I know we as elected officials were really thoughtful of what we can and can't post and what accounts we can use. So I think it'd be great if we had an account from the district office and have somebody like Tom or somebody that knows the facts and get rid of all the misinformation would be great. Not to throw another thing on your shoulders, but
Tom logs into Facebook.
but I think we do need a social media presence to take away all the misinformation, because there was a lot of it. And getting people into our schools while the students are there, I think, would be really big, because just walking into school, you don't see everything that's going on. You don't see how tight those classrooms are and how the robotics team, if they're doing anything during the hallways, we talked about it tonight, they're renting out another building because we just don't have space. As Gail said, there's kids learning, they took a bathroom and cut that thing in half, no locker room, and having kids learning in there. It's pretty sad when you start looking in there, or there's gym class going on, and behind the curtain on a stage, the band's playing while the gym class is going on. We're out of space. More space would be needed. Vito?
It'd be nice to get the information from Andy as far as what's coming up when. So it said in 10 years, in the next 10 years, it's $7 million. I mean, it's $6 million in a year, and then $1 million in the next 9 years, or is it how that's spaced out? What's the saying?
I think we have that, don't we?
Emotion buys, logic justifies. So if we can get that information, that more goes to the logic part of it, where it's like, if we're going to be spending another $5 million in a couple of years.
So our 10-year plan does account for the timing of each building's need. We passed that in March. That 10-year plan can be fluid, though. If, for example, Rolling Hills is, 25 years old now, give or take. That roof is coming due, but we'll walk it each year, and if the roof looks like it can hold out for another 2 years, we'll hold out. But when the need comes, then we address it. So we have a great idea of when those needs could be coming, but there's always a little bit of flexibility that within that plan. But we do have those, and I'll share that with the board here through email, okay?
Okay. Crosby?
Had my hand up for a while. It's okay. I am in favor of this project. I believe that strong schools build strong communities. I'm conflicted with the timing, and that I think is the hardest part for everybody sitting here. And to echo what you said, it does require a full court press, but it can't just be from the 15 of us sitting up here every day or twice a month. We need community partners as well. So for everybody sitting in here, which I'm very grateful that you are here tonight, you didn't know you were going to get homework, but but I would love to see a full court press on what we call the purple people, the non-staff the non-family, the non-student families. That is what's going to win a referendum. So how do we target those people? It can't just be the 15 of us. It needs to be a full community effort. And I think that's essential if we're actually going to win a referendum. And if we had that, if we had a true community effort, I would be more inclined to say put it on November. I'm still very hesitant. I think there's a lot of fear that's going into this next election, but I would be more inclined to do it if we knew that we had community partners out there who were going to spread the message.
I'll call Mark Belling.
Since he blasted us last time.
Eric?
So, Tom, I wasn't a member of the community when the last referendum went through. How much did we say we needed and how much did we use?
In terms of,
The high school.
like, the facility needs and all those
Like
things?
whatever the referendum was. If it was 50 million when you used 25, what were the numbers?
It was, I mean, Kurt was really director of that at that time, in the planning phases and the actual execution of it. So it was a $49.5 million referendum. We used that referendum to the max. We used it all. I mean, we're replacing part of the roof there right now for like $1.7 million. That roof was not ready in 2016. Like, so we said, hey, let's delay it. Like, the Mukwonago High School has a ton of needs, but we used that $49.5 million to do everything we said, from building a PAC, new cafeteria, which launched a new 8-period day for kids to get all the credits they need for graduation, West Gym, modern spaces. Kurt, what else did we do there? Fire sprinklers throughout?
Right, new sprinklers, yeah. We were also able to leverage some donor money, so we were able to do more than the $49.5 million. We were able to put a full solar array on, which half of that was paid for by grants as well. So we looked at those opportunities as well. So it ended up being a larger project than the $49.5 million because we were able to get those other grants and donors that helped out with some of those areas. It was I mentioned I work with other school districts. It was a textbook project. It was a project that I like to brag about and talk about as far as how Mukwonago schools, just with our fiscal responsibility and being able to make good decisions, that ultimately ended with an amazing facility at a cost that was very efficient, and with the amount of stuff that we got done, and then being in the community, seeing how it gets used, right? Driving by there at 9 o'clock at night and seeing people on the fields and in classrooms in the band room, the lights are on at 9 o'clock at night. It was a really great project, and I hope when Parkview project happens, whether it's now or in 2 years, I expect that'll be the same for Parkview.
Dr. Cook?
Yep, I was just
Did you have something?
No, I was just grabbing the mic back and making sure I could get notes.
Crosby?
So to piggyback off of that, how do we, because I do think we are fiscally responsible, and I do think that we take very good care of our buildings, but that is something that came up a lot on social media, is that, oh, you're just not taking care of buildings, and now you're asking for all this money. How do we combat that misinformation?
So I think part of it, a couple of things. I think, one, we do have a level of community engagement right now, which is great. I think we use this opportunity if whatever course we take, we use this opportunity to keep the community engaged. And that might mean then that we engage we offer the opportunity to come in and see our schools. Tom mentioned Rolling Hills being 25 years old, the potential for a new roof. We've talked about the needs that we have at Parkview right now. We've talked about the work that we did at MHS. You know, if as part of this work, if we decide to go in this direction, part of it is getting people to come in and see, you know, the power in seeing what has been done and what has been maintained. I go back, we hired 2 new principals this past year. When we did tours of the buildings, they were blown away by the condition of our schools. And that was at Big Bend and Clarendon. Parts of those buildings are old, parts of those buildings are newer. But they were blown away by how well those buildings have been maintained, by the artwork that they saw from the students when they looked. I mean, they were looking at the floor, they were looking at the ceiling, they were looking at the tiles, they were looking at everything. There's evidence every day that shows that we are taking care of that. And we're not going to the community time and time again to do whatever work is done. So I think we take that opportunity to take that campaign. some of that has to spread by word of mouth. Crosby, you'd mentioned, what is the community engagement group? What's the community support group look like for this? And that is definitely something that we need to hear from. This is the longest discussion we've had on this project, going back, over a full year at the board meeting. It's taking this discussion tonight and seeing what interest is out there, who reaches out to us, who talks to us, and who can we reach out to see, hey, if the board decides to do this, are you behind this project and will you go out and support it? There's a lot to do in that regard. We can beef up our social media presence. We absolutely can. But it's going to take multiple voices to challenge the misinformation that goes on. Tom's slides and Tom's presentation, the financial component of it, we have been one of the lowest funded districts in the state for the last 30 years. On top of that, we've produced excellent academic results. We do a great job providing a variety of programming for our students, from a solid AP academic 4-year college experience all the way across the spectrum to students who are going to be going into the world of work, kids who want to serve in the military, kids who want to go to tech school. I mean, we provide an excellent comprehensive experience. This middle school allows us to do that, grades 6 through 8, plus then 9 through 12. And that's one of the biggest pushes that we need to make. So I think for all of those reasons, we have to entertain it. We have to make that push.
Coming in here, I was thinking April. I wasn't thinking November, but this conversation is leading me more towards November. Thinking about, we are gonna have more people. It's the community's choice, not our choice. It's not like we're making the choice to spend the money. It's the community's choice. And Tom's presentation showing the money with the levy, with the new assessments. And I keep thinking about a resident that told me, when is a good time? There's always going to be something out there. Inflation, war, turmoil. So when is a good time?
When's a good time to ask for $90 million?
I think one of the things, though, and Tom and I did speak to this when we had our community presentations, we need to be in a position where we can at least ask our community the question. And that's very much what the decision is. The board saying, community, we're asking for your support or you to reject this project. And I think that's always a thing that we need to be able to have with our community. There's going to be folks that support it. There's going to be folks that are going to be against it. But we always need to maintain that position where we can ask the question. That is something that, when we did this survey and we got feedback on the survey, why are you asking us again? We have to always be in a position where we can ask questions, where we can get information and feedback from individuals.
All right, so moving forward, we have to decide as a board, where are we going?
So since this isn't an action item, I guess, what I could ask Laura to do tomorrow morning is poll, because in order to make the final decision on this, we would have to have an additional meeting where this topic was up, and the 2 resolutions, we do have 2 resolutions in the board packet. One is the preliminary resolution to say we want to ask it, and then the other one is the resolution that would then appear on the ballot. So we would have to have an additional meeting to cover that part.
Correct.
Next board meeting?
Due to the timing, we'd have to have a special meeting, and we'd be looking sometime end of this week or the beginning of next week. That would allow us to get the question printed and then to the clerks. So I will ask Laura to poll you tomorrow morning for a time that would work.
And if we do have a special meeting, the option to do it through video would be available.
Right. If due to the circumstances, we could have virtual participation for board members. We could have people who are here in the room. Everybody who would be on the screen. That's a legitimate vote.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on to action items, hires, retirements, and resignations.
All right, we have some contracts offered. We have Brad Graywald, who was offered a credit recovery teacher at the high school. It's a limited term, part-time position. Marlena Johnson, who was offered the Aspire special education teaching position at the high school. Jordan Lombard, who was offered a physical education teaching position at Big Bend Elementary School. Chris Martin offered the math interventionist position at the high school. Madeline Miramontes, or Maddie she goes by, library technology specialist at Clarendon Elementary School. Shelley Mitchell was offered the counseling position at Mukwonago High School, and then Angela Ratton was offered a social studies position also at Mukwonago High School. We received resignations from Eric Brandenburg, who is a science teacher at Mukwonago High School, Jeffrey Grant, a physical education teacher at Big Bend Elementary School, and Shurston Sandin, who is a speech and language part-time speech and language pathologist at Big Bend Elementary School.
Make a motion, we approve the hires, retirements, resignations as listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Moving on to school resource officer contract.
All right, so you have a 3-year contract to extend the contract in front of you, so looking just to answer questions you might have. If not, hopefully you guys will continue to do this with the Village of Mukwonago.
You said there was no changes from last time, correct?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the school resource officer contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Up next, we are going to move into executive session. According to Wisconsin statute 19.85, we are going to be discussing teacher salary negotiations. Looking for a motion to close the open session and go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to close the open session and go to closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Crosby, do roll call, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Jake,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Craig,
Yep.
Crosby, yes.
All right. Open session is closed. We'll take a 5